first acts as president was to propose that gay servicemen and women be allowed to serve openly. That was 15 years ago, and it almost derailed his presidency. Instead, the military adopted a policy called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, where gays can serve as long as they remain in the closet. The Pentagon says it's been a success, but 12,000 military men and women have been discharged under the policy. Now, something curious is happening. Discharges of gay soldiers are dropping dramatically, from over 1,200 a year in 2001 to barely 600. With the military struggling to fight 2 wars, there are growing calls to repeal the policy and growing evidence that some commanders could care less about sexual orientation. What is your job here?
Here in Kuwait, I'm the medical liaison for my division.
Army Sergeant Darren Manzella is in Kuwait on his second deployment of the Iraq War. He spoke to us without permission. You have quite a story to tell.
Yes, I do.
Manzella served as a medic with a field artillery unit in Baghdad back in 2005, earning a combat medal for rendering treatment under fire.
I've treated everything from blast injuries to gunshot wounds.
So you were an important part of this unit.
I'd like to think so.
Manzella was out to his Army buddies and even introduced them to his boyfriend, AJ. But then he started getting anonymous emails saying he was being watched and warning him to turn down the flame.
Turn down the flame.
As in flamingly gay.
Yes.
He went for help to his commanding officer and in the process told him, as in don't ask, don't tell, that he was gay. And he said, I'm going to have to report you?
He did report me, yes. And I had to go see my battalion commander, who read me my rights. So.
He read you your rights?
Yes.
So what you did, in effect, by telling him, was trigger the investigation you feared was underway?
I did, and I felt more comfortable with that. I felt more comfortable being the one to say, this is the truth. This is what is real.
What a catch-22. You go and tell your lieutenant the truth, and now you violated the Army's rule.
I didn't know how else to do it and keep my sanity.
Manzella didn't hold anything back in the investigation, submitting these photos of himself and AJ and this video of a road trip, including passionate kissing. Oh, they have this in your file. This is in the file. Oh, my word. But when the investigation ended,
I was told to go back to work. There was no evidence of homosexuality and go back to work.
There was no evidence of homosexuality?
Yes.
Wait a minute, you'd given them photographs of you and AJ.
Yes. And then they're like, go back to work.
It's almost bizarre. So no one ever said anything to you about the I don't even know what word to use, absurdity, confusing response?
The closest thing that I was given was by my superiors was, I don't care if you're gay or not.
Why would Darren's commander do this? Well, let's think about it.
Sholene Espinoza was an Air Force captain who flew combat missions. Now she works with the Service Members Legal Defense Network, a group pushing to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Darren is in a critical field. He's a medic. His commander needs him. He's a known quantity. He gets along with others. He does what he's supposed to. He goes above and beyond. Why do I want to lose Darren?
Espinoza, who's now a captain for a commercial airline, left the Air Force after 8 years so she could live openly as a lesbian. But you're saying you think that these commanders are looking the other way?
I think they have to.
She says she knows of at least 500 such cases. To her mind, retaining these soldiers, especially in Iraq, is a no-brainer.
Something that's often overlooked is the number of deployments. You know, I met a man who missed the birth of his child, and he's been there 3 times. It's like, why not allow a gay soldier to ease that burden? They want to serve, they can serve.
Our purpose in the military is not social engineering or whatever else you want to call it. It is about fighting and winning the nation's wars.
Army Major Daniel Davis, a Gulf War veteran, now a specialist in battlefield tactics, says allowing gays to serve openly would hurt unit cohesion. Davis came to our interview out of uniform, emphasizing that in defending Don't Ask, Don't Tell, he was not speaking for the U.S. military. His view is that military troops are generally conservative, and allowing gays to serve openly would offend them and jeopardize battle effectiveness.
And if you introduce something in there that's going to cause chaos and division, then that's going to prohibit that unit from forming the bonds and the cohesion and that teamwork that's necessary to really win and do well in hard combat.
What do you think would happen if a unit with a gay person went out into a combat situation?
In my view, men are going to die, units are going to fail that would otherwise not fail or would otherwise not die.
Didn't they say exactly the same thing about blacks?
You know, I've heard that many times.
And then cohesion was achieved.
However, if you have a moral or religious issue, you cannot order me to bond and cohese with that person because it's morally repugnant to me.
But Espinoza says if the policy were changed, the troops would have to fall in line.
You can believe that black people are not as smart as white people. You can believe that and still serve in a United States uniform. You can believe that women should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. You can believe that, but you cannot bring those beliefs to your job front.
Each of these gay men was, to some degree, open in their units. Steve Larandos was a nuclear submarine mechanic with the Navy. Brian Fricke, a Marine Corps avionics technician who served in Iraq. David Santos, a Navy-trained Arabic linguist, and Army-trained Korean linguist Jared Chapowski. How many people knew?
Shoot, at least 100.
At least 100.
Yeah.
And you weren't discharged?
No.
Well, the only thing that ever happened to me was my leading petty officer came up to me and he said, you know, I think that everything about homosexuals is disgusting. It makes my skin crawl, but we still love you.
Why do you think the people who knew didn't tell on you that was required?
They don't care. It's, you know, these are our peers.
Yes.
This is the generation that also, like with the Will and Grace generation, they were exposed to...
The Will and Grace generation?
That's what we kind of refer to them as. They grew up with it in the media, you know, gays, and they see gay people, as humans, as Americans. They don't see gay people as people with a disability or disease.
These men say the military's top brass is out of touch with the troops and with the American public. Recent polls show 3/4 of the country now favors allowing gays to serve openly, which is what the British military has done since the year 2000.
I don't believe for a second it's affected the fighting capability of our forces.
Admiral Sir Alan West, now an anti-terrorism minister in the British government, was head of the Royal Navy back then. Was it smooth? Was it traumatic? Was it difficult? Was it easy?
Actually, to be quite honest, it has been almost no trouble. And the people who had said, oh, well, you know, young soldiers and young sailors will never accept this, they actually accepted it much more easily than silly old blighters like me.
You know, you actually told us that you think that the product, the outcome of this, is actually making the military better.
I think it is better. I think it is better.
Why
because people feel they can be open about who they are, and they can really throw themselves totally into what you want to achieve with your force.
We're Navy!
Talk about being open. The Royal Navy now allows sailors to march in gay pride parades in uniform, and gay couples are even eligible for married military housing.
We aren't the Brits. We're not the Europeans. We're not the Swedes.
Presidential candidate Duncan Hunter is the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. He argues that gays do not belong in the U.S. military because American troops need to be hardened warriors, unlike soldiers in the 15 NATO countries where gays serve openly.
The Fallujahs of the world, the Ramatis of the world that require heavy combat and lots of firefighting capability, those are the places the Americans go. The other countries tend to go to the so-called peacekeeper zones, where they have fewer firefights and less contact with the enemy. And the European nations show little will to send large contingents of their military people into dangerous places.
I think American troops are very brave, and I think British troops are very brave, but we do it in a little bit of probably a quieter way generally, you know. We don't have to go and shave our heads off and shake hands very hard. You can still kill someone without having to